Awareness Month and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. These causes hold deep meaning to our community. They remind us of the strength, resilience, and courage it takes to confront things that are often unseen or unspoken. Here in our office, we're working on a new initiative focused on domestic violence awareness and empowering bystanders to take action. Because prevention and support begin with awareness, and awareness begins with each of us. As you listen today, we invite you to keep these issues close to heart and remember that together we can create real change. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk, Real Change. I'm Adina.
And I'm Councilmember Morton.
Today we're talking policy updates, what's new, what's changing, and how it all affects you.
From recovery residents and neighborhood preservation to safer streets and improvements in our neighborhoods, we're breaking down what's happening across the city and right here in the 1st District.
Because if you know the policy, you understand the progress.
So grab your coffee, your lunch, dinner, whatever gets you in that zone, and let's get into some real talk, real change.
Tyler, you've been in office for over 8 months, and already there is a lot of movement coming out of the 1st District office. When you look back, what's been the biggest shift from ideas to actual policy action?
We just got to work. My promise that I made, was to get to work day one. And that's exactly what we did. We created an advisory board, and that's what was also on a promise during the campaign. And we talked about challenges in all the neighborhoods. We put all that in a list. We went to the drawing board and we came up with our list of legislative items. And that is a long list. And that's what we'll talk about today. But we just got to work is what I'll say.
People often think policy happens somewhere far away. But what does it really look like day to day in local government? And why should residents care about these updates?
Yeah, there is moving pieces, especially when you have a lot of legislative items, when you're balancing other meetings and all the other different things that come with the office. It's a lot of moving pieces, but for our office, it's even more moving pieces because we're very intentional. We believe in, obviously, working with the experts. We believe in working with the community, getting community input, but then also thinking innovatively, thinking outside the box, being unconventional sometimes. And when you're that way, it adds an extra step in there. So there's just a lot of moving pieces, and this update is important because the community should be informed along the way. They should be able to give input along the way, and that's how impactful legislative items are successful because of that.
So you've been innovative from the campaign to now being in the office, and especially in how you set up your office with staff, having 2 part-time aides and yourself as part-time. We all kind of
Full-time,
right?
Never been part-time. 50 hours a week. What you talking about? I'm playing. Well, no, I'm not playing, but for real.
So what does that look like for your staff, and how do they help to move your policy and your ideas forward?
Yeah. So, coming into it, I was a legislative aide, so I knew exactly the load of the 1st District. The 1st District has the most work. It has the most calls. Anything you think of, just look at the records. They're there. So that's a lot of work. And you're balancing, as I was saying earlier, you're balancing a lot of things. You're balancing committees. My 2 aides have split committees, 2 different committees. You're balancing constituent concerns. So folks call in the office with their concerns, and our number one principle is accessible leadership. So we are responsive. We try to be as attentive as possible. You're balancing. We go to neighborhood associations that meet about 3 a week. So alongside with their part time. So there's a lot of moving pieces, I would say. But I have 2 part-time aides, 2 fabulous part-time aides. It feels like they're full-time, and I work full-time. So what I say is we're all in our lane, and we're pushing our legislative items through. We're progressing through. And I would say 3 people is better than 2 in that case. So.
Right. So rather than really keep everybody very long, because we really want them to stay on and listen to all these policy updates because we have a lot, right?
Take 2.
Why don't you just give the first one that we are talking about, which I had the pleasure of working with you on, which is recovery residents ordinance or sober living. Yeah. So basically, what will residents actually see, how this ordinance balances supporting recovery and maintaining neighborhood stability, and what kind of feedback you received. Just an overview of that one.
All right, we're going to do this.
Keep it brief.
Quick overview into the next topic.
Yes.
All right. All right, so what led me to this item was the community. In the campaign trail, this was an item that was brought to my attention in about July or August. And the community band together, Oakwood Neighborhood, NATO banded together and said, we want to know what's taking place, and we want to be informed and help create policy that allows for that. And going back just one more step, that the state government at that time had passed a law that allowed for local governments to regulate recovery residences. So with that, I've made a promise, if elected, that I would address all of our challenges head on. And that was one that was brought to my attention that needed help for legislation on that, so that's what I did. So in that, the administration presented a draft version in April. We took that, myself led a group of 3 other council members for a working group to dive into the ordinance, to dive into the issue, and to do some research, see what could be done, see what we're dealing with, see how we can protect those in recovery, see how we can make sure that our neighborhoods are safe and healthy. And we just looked to strengthen the draft ordinance that was put before us. And we did so. We did it in 4 different thematic ways. Through enforcement, I believe. We said that we cross-reference other ordinances, basically saying that the ordinance on the book have to be followed, whether that be planning. We heard a big concern about how many people are living in houses, whether that be public nuisance. We heard criminal activity concerns. In most cases, we know that there are bad actors out there and that they put the name of sober living on them, but they are just giving a bad reputation to the actual name of recovery residents. So we knowing that we have to get those bad actors away doing that criminal activity, because most of the time they're not even sober living. And then also we had the transparency piece where you're informed. Your neighborhood association, your HOA, the abutting properties, the surrounding neighbors know that a recovery residence is coming there and that they are allowed under the law to come there. So those are the main, and well, then also adding things like rehousing language to show that there's a plan if something takes place. It's just not going to shut down and folks are just there. There's a plan.
Yeah.
And that protects those in recovery, but then also the community in that case. And then know your rights section to emphasize that those in recovery do have rights and they should be treated in a fairest way and be guided through their recovery so that they can get at the end of their journey, their beautiful journey. So we just looked to strengthen that draft ordinance, and that didn't get everything. It didn't address every concern raised by the community. The main concern that it didn't address is the fact that you can't regulate how many are in a certain area. And that is due to federal and state law, the Fair Housing Act. But just a quick example, you can't say we don't want this amount of sober living because they're sober living. That is effectively discrimination if you say it that way. But there are umbrella laws, the group housing laws that could be put in place to say we don't want this amount of group housing because that could take away from affordable housing. That could take away from the character of a neighborhood. They can do other things, and those are laws that we're looking into, not due to recovery residents, but due to the fact that we are in a housing crisis, and we should be pushing towards home ownership and different things like that. But we won't dive into those other topics. But at the end of the day, the goal was to protect those in recovery, protect our neighborhoods. We know that we're going to look back at it and when the 6-month grace period is over, and possibly annually. But then also we know that there's other legislative items that may come out of this that can address some of the other concerns. And we'll go on to the next topic.
We can, but I think it's important to say that prior to this, there was really no way for us to even know if it was recovery residents.
Right. 100%.
To make sure that they are providing the services to the people that are in recovery.
Certified,
all the things.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of collaboration and
100%.
partnerships and many hours of meetings to make sure that we were able to refine this ordinance and get all the things in it to make it a good ordinance
100%.
to move forward.
4 or 5 months worth of work, dozens of meetings, about a dozen meetings, bringing all different type of experts in, community public hearing sessions. I mean, really try to put intention into this ordinance. And we tried our best. The goal is to address every possible concern, but in some cases when you're limited by those that are attorneys, I'm not an attorney. So when you're limited in certain cases, you have to find a way to address the challenge in another way. But also we know, like Adina just said, that without this ordinance, it's free reign. It's free for all, and we have to get something on the books to at least figure out where are we.
Correct.
And when we do that, we're not going to stop. We're going to figure out where we're going next.
Right. So next thing we want to talk about is the LFD Strategic Growth Plan. So the Lexington Fire Department is another big win for the city. Why was it important for your office to be a part of shaping this plan and your emphasis on paramedicine? Can you break down what that means and how it changes the way our city responds in emergencies?
Right. So this plan, coming into it, public safety is one of my top 1 priorities as well. The safety and making sure that our communities are safe and healthy. And that is tied to public safety. In this case, coming into it, I knew that we have a lot of fire stations in our district compared to other districts. Some don't have any. And in that case, it's not that I was pushing to get another fire station. What I was pushing to do is what's taking place is our units when fires or emergencies are taking place on the other side of the town are getting pulled. And then when our folks possibly need services, they are having to wait, possibly, or having to get a unit that's not directly near them. I'm not going to say they have to wait because we have great response times, but
Right.
at least they have to get a unit that wasn't directly near them. So it's important. We know that the city is growing, that the fire department grows with it. So with Councilmember Hale, I work with Councilmember Hale on this item. We work with the fire department to establish a pretty much strategic growth plan over the next 5, 10 to 15 years of, well, what stations are needed, what personnel is needed, what other capital investments are needed, and how do we mark that? What time frame is it needed in? And we got that on the record. We had that in the Social Service Public Safety Committee, and we got through with it. Adina mentioned paramedicine. I am a big fan of paramedicine, but it's all about mental health. It's about rethinking public safety, understanding that we're in a mental health crisis. We need folks that are experts, that are clinicians responding, period. So I did a big push, and I'm still doing big pushes to get that expanded, make sure they have the resources they needed, whether that be the expansion of the crisis response in our past budget that I pushed for and put in there through our committee. And thank you to the Social Service Public Safety Link Committee, Vice Mayor Wu and Councilmember Beasley for that recommendation. Or the continued push even through the strategic growth plan to say, hey, make sure that we're looking at paramedicine when we're expanding the fire department. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. So the next thing we want to talk about, which has been a...
What are you talking about? Oh, here, I'll just take it from the top right here. You talking about the emergency winter shelter?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so that is, and she's joking and stuff like that because, well, that was something we were having conversations about. Well, first, let me start this. In the time of the winter, when winter comes and when it's cold seasons, we have to make sure that our unhoused brothers and sisters have all the resources. And
I was going to say that if you would let me finish,
well,
but go ahead.
I'm sorry, host. Anyway, so back to our topic. Either way, we got to make sure that our brothers and sisters have a place to stay warm during the winter. And this item, it was in committee, one, to make sure the resources are available to that, but two, so the council can be a part of that conversation. Now, through internal conversations and just being a part of the other conversations internally, this item technically would not be presented on, but just know that we have our fingers on the pulse. We're part of the conversations when it comes to the whole 9 yards, when it comes to resources, when it comes to location, when it comes to everything, and making sure that we're being very intentional about this.
So the next topic is Anti-Displacement and Neighborhood Voices Project. So when you're leading the neighborhood, let me see. For people hearing about this for the first time, because I think this is like a little bit newer, right? So I've been working on it.
Very broad topic.
Broad topic. What is it and how does it work?
She just got on me for talking too long. But this is a very broad topic, and I guess I'll try to put in a synopsis. So we know that our community is growing, and our historic African-American neighborhoods and a lot of our other historic neighborhoods in Lexington are under pressure of growth. Specifically, I've been emphasizing the need to preserve those neighborhoods, but also combat gentrification and displacement with anti-displacement measures. So with this, Councilman Brown and myself, we've been working with planning, and we had several different meetings and try to figure out, well, what can we do? Well, first, what are we doing? And the answer to that is not much, because there's just not much tools in the toolbox that work. So I'm adamant about, well, we're going to do something. Well, what does that look like? Well, we started just throwing stuff at the wall because it's a dense topic. We're talking about preservation tools. You think about overlays. Well, we know that certain undervalued communities can't afford overlays. That won't work for them. We talk about different development planning processes. Well, we know that in certain cases, that may cause division in neighborhoods with other preservation tools of trying to get folks to agree to one thing. So how can we, in a full fashion, with the goal of preserving our neighborhoods, preserving the culture and the history, and also put in tools to stop gentrification and combat displacement? Well, what does that look like? Well, we decided that we'll build it from the ground up. We'll start by listening to the community. So we'll do cultural and historic surveys. We'll pick a pilot area, one neighborhood, and do cultural and historic surveys. So we'll listen to the community. We'll figure out, we'll get the culture, we'll get the history, get the past on the record. We'll get the context of the neighborhood. We'll get all of these different things that are important to those neighbors and put that on the record. And with that, the start of that, we were broken into 3 phases. The first phase is policy. this context, this information, as we continue to gather it, can be put into policy that can go into the comprehensive plan so that when developers come, they have the context of the neighborhood. They have the input of the neighborhood. It's not, there's no excuse to not go get it or that you couldn't find the neighbors, that you didn't have it, because it'll be in policy. The second piece is the preservation, the capital investment. How do we bring something to this area that preserves that neighborhood, that you can speak towards and say, hey, this is part of the culture, this is the history, and how do you bring that capital, how do you bring some type of infrastructure in that? And then the third phase is, my analogy is that the tools in the toolbox for preservation do not work for certain neighborhoods. So let's take an empty toolbox to this community. Let's work with the community. Let's do research. Let's listen to them. Let's see what's displacing folks. Let's see what they perceive as gentrification as, what they perceive the character as of their neighborhood. And let's put new tools in the toolbox that are work with the community and combat this issue. So right now we're in the pilot phase. We chose Smithtown as our first neighborhood. We're diving into that first phase, doing those cultural and historic surveys, getting that data. We're going to do that through one-on-ones, with different community leaders from the neighborhoods, past and present, different neighbors, past and present. We're going to pretty much do different big town halls, let folks come in and give input. We're going to do a big community engagement and get that data so that we can get to those next 3 steps that I described. I'm sorry for being long with it, but this is one of my favorite items, and I think it's important.
Next topic is community center assessments and revitalization. You've been visiting community centers all across the city. What are some of the main things you've learned so far? And when you talk about reimagining what community centers can be, what does that mean in terms of more programming, better spaces, new partnerships?
Yeah, so I'm working on this item with Councilmember Beasley and myself, and it's exactly how you just kind of explained it. Our goal for this item is to make our community centers more impactful, better accessible, and to have resources that address the challenges of the surrounding community. And what does that look like through this item? Well, we formed a working group. We have a lot of working groups we work on, but I think it's always good to get different opinions from multiple people. Community input is what it's called. But either way, we formed a working group to look at all the different centers, to tour them, to see what they look like, to see what they offer, to listen to the staff, figure out what program they offer, to just do a whole dive into community centers, and to figure out, to recommend what can make this center more impactful, more accessible, and is there opportunity to bring in partners to provide other services for the surrounding community. We have about 3 community centers left. At the end of this phase, the last phase we'll work together to provide recommendations of just reaching that goal. How do we make them more accessible, more impactful, and then also how can we have more resources available for the surrounding community? What does that look like? That looks like possibly budgeting, making sure that they have budgets. It may look like pushing for more staffing so that we can make sure we're reaching more youth. That could be tied to collaboration or communication. It could be all of these different things, but we're still diving into it. And our goal is just to make our community centers more impactful, accessible, and have resources.
Which I think is tied to the youth programming legislation. This one, I know that you're passionate about youth programming. What gaps have you identified in the city's current youth programs? How will your youth program board play a role in shaping future policy around youth engagement? And what is your long-term goal? And what would success look like in a year or 2 from now?
Yeah. Well, this one, they definitely go hand in hand. But the youth programming item, it's simple. We have to make sure that our youth have access to comprehensive youth programming. And to me, what that looks like is access to educational opportunities outside of school, whether that be tutoring, whether that be mentorship in different fields, any of that, the whole 9 yards. The second is access to financial and employment as a youth, making sure that they can do different labor training, work with different laborers possibly, work with the community as a community leader, maybe work in our community center, just access that employment. And then the last one is building leadership, youth leadership. So that comprehensive youth programming. So what this item is intended to do is to get us back to that. First, we're going to do in this first phase is an assessment of all the youth programming here in the city to look at our gaps, possibly to look at what we're offering. The second phase is to get community input. So do that through both listening to the students, listen to the youth, making sure it's tailored to them, but then also listen to their parents to figure out what are the gaps, what are we doing well, what do you believe we should do? And the last phase is, go back to the second phase a little bit. We're going to do that through surveys, but then also town halls, so multiple ways. And the last phase is a recommendation to the council of where here is the recommendations of what is needed to revitalize youth programming. That is that item. We are in the first phase of assessment. We're going to working on phase 2, and Adina's going to be a big help on that one. So we'll be having more information coming out of that very soon and look to roll that out towards early 2026.
And multiple times you have mentioned how you would get a youth advisory board started.
Right.
And put a lot of pressure on me to do that.
100%.
We've had our first meeting.
Adina,
I just want to say
let's give
that.
Adina her flowers.
Yes.
Because we have had our
How
first
do you feel
meeting.
like this will shape the future of policy around your youth engagement?
Oh, I want them to help lead this item because the youth input is important. I was just at Henry Clay yesterday talking to the youth, and I emphasize to them, and I say it all the time, they're not just the present, they're the future, and their voice matters. The decisions we make now, right now, is directly going to affect them, not just now, but also in the future. So their voice, they should be a part of it. So this item, I'm hoping that our students will buy into it, that they will push it within their schools, get folks to give input, help organize when we do those town halls, be a part, help lead it. And that's exactly what this youth advisory board is intended to do, is to, one, build youth leadership, which I think is important for comprehensive youth programming, but then also let them know that they are the present and the future and that their voice matters. So they'll be a big help in this alongside with Adina.
And I just want to say that it's been very impactful and eye-opening to see how much our youth really sees and observes and takes in with what's going on in our community. And when you sit and listen to them talk about what they're concerned about, it's not things that kids should be concerned about. So it's interesting to get to know them on that level and see how aware they are of their surroundings. And
no, I agree. I 100% agree. We're in here, back to Henry Clay. We was in Henry Clay yesterday, and I'm like, we're talking about challenges, and it's the same challenge that you hear from the adults. It's mental health. It's gun violence. It's what we're dealing with right now on the ground. And that's why it's important to have them a part of that conversation, because what we implement now, we know that government takes time.
Mm-hmm.
There it goes, right.
Yeah.
So what we implement now is directly going to affect them. They'll be 18, 19 years old.
Right.
No, I'm playing. We're going to get this done soon.
So
we need it done now.
So the next one we want to talk about is HB or House Bill 443 notification waiver. You took action around HB 443.
House Bill 443.
House Bill 443, yeah, pushing for expanded public notification. Why was transparency, which if we counted how many times you say transparency, it would be a lot.
Accountability, transparency.
Yeah, such a key part of that fight. And how will these new requirements make sure residents are more aware of development in their communities?
Right. If y'all haven't realized yet, the themes there's about 3 themes. It's about public safety, safe and healthy neighborhoods, youth programming, and investing in our youth. And then the third one, our challenge is pressures of growth.
I thought you were going to say information sharing.
Well, that's a principle.
Yeah.
We're doing that either way. But
right.
I'm talking about challenges, right?
Yeah.
So looking through our legislative items, that's the themes: public safety, safe and healthy neighborhoods, investing in our youth, and the pressures of growth. In this case, House Bill 443, what that did was it streamlined the development process, kicked out a phase, the development plan phase, where a community could give input, where community were informed because it was a longer process, and it changed it to essentially check boxes for the planning staff. If a developer if it's zoned and already got the zone change, all the developer has to do is submit their paperwork, follow the rule, the standards, the check boxes, and boom, dirt's moved. Initially no notification, no anything. So 2 phases that I pushed for was exactly what Adina said: transparency. The first phase was to say if that is already zoned that way, and even if the developers have every checkbox checked off with no deviations from the standards, the community at least should be informed to say, hey, this is coming here. It's zoned that way. It's our property. We get to do it, but we at least informed you. Transparency. Yeah. That's one phase. We pushed that. We got that through. The second phase was the waiver. So back to those check boxes. All they have to do is check those check boxes off, and they got it. Well, a developer could say, I want to deviate from one of these check boxes. I want to do it a little bit different. In that case, the community gets to give input. So I felt that we should give a broad notification to that surrounding community to let them know, say, hey, this, because if he's going to deviate from the standard, then that should be an issue. We've set standards. That's what this is for. That's what HB 443 is. So we can set the standards and to say you should do it this way. If you're going to deviate from that, the community should be able to be informed that you're deviating, but then 2, come to the meeting and give input about it. And that's exactly what that waiver notification was: inform the community of what's taking place. And I just
Mhm.
did a push to, one, push that information, but then also expand the notification so as many people can know as possible. And we successfully did that.
What's the expansion?
It's the zone change. So I'll tell you what it started with. It started with the 2 abutting properties. Through compromise, we did half of the zone change notification, which the zone change is about 500 feet in all directions. We did 250 feet in all directions. So it went from 2 neighbors, possibly maybe 4 neighbors, to 50 to 60.
Mm.
Is about the example.
Yeah.
Maybe even up towards 120, depending on where you're in the street.
So next project I want to talk about is a pilot program called Bring Back the Bluegrass. It's a unique name because we're covered in bluegrass here in Kentucky. What's the story behind this? How does this pilot connect environmental sustainability with community empowerment? What can people expect from the first event at the end? Is it at the end of this month?
It's gonna
Was
be
it the
it's gonna be
plan?
mid-November.
Mid-November.
We're moving the
Okay.
dates. We're trying to make it impactful, intentional. We'll be intentional, and we got a lot of stuff going on. Let's be truthful. But with that, the Bring Back the Bluegrass started in COVID, and the intentions is environment and some environmental sustainability, but then also cost saving. Well, we realized that it was in COVID, and there was some lack of communication, lack of information sharing, and the communities had no clue or no input onto that, adding that to their parks in certain cases, in several of my District 1 parks. So through lack of investment and over time and lack of attention, those areas need attention, hands on them, tender love and care. And that had none of that. It turned into what the community perceives it as weeds. So first they weren't informed, so they thought it was weeds the whole time about it, which is unfortunate. And the second piece is when it hadn't had that investment into it, it's exactly what it turned to. Weeds. That's exactly what it is. It's weeds. Now, we know she's laughing, but I'm unfortunate,
But there's one, I think I've seen one area
there's
that's
some of them
really
that have some
nice over
investment,
in
yeah.
Castlewood.
But that's the thing, to make them work, and that's exactly what this pilot project, I'm sorry, we're going to get to that. To make them work, it needs that 10-11 care because and don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert, I'm speaking loosely. You have to get rid of those weeds. You got to take those weeds out, maintain it so that they don't spread because the system is for the seeding to spread. Mm-hmm. So you want the good flowers to spread, not the weeds. And the weed trees and all these other different things are taking over the areas. So what has spread it?
I'm sorry.
It sounds bad.
But this is funny to me
but it's
because
truthful.
we have went from youth engagement, fire department expansion and growth, and what else? Sober living, recovery
to
residents,
weeds, right?
to weeds.
But listen, environmental sustainability, that is building safe and healthy neighborhoods, right? That theme.
It is because if you're maintaining those areas, then it probably helps with homeless encampments that have been setting up in some of those spaces.
And we're talking about food forests.
Okay.
Putting foods in these areas. So
yeah.
There's many different things to bring to it based on what the community wants. So let's get this right. It's not what I'm wanting or what other folks saying. It's based on that surrounding community. And we're going back to that principle, address all of our challenges head on. This was brought to me. I figured rather than just pushing, because right now they would say some folks would say just cut it down. Mm-hmm. Right. I think there is importance of environmental sustainability. Mm-hmm. And if you do it the right way and inform folks of how to do it and get the investments to the community, it's not just environmental sustainability, it's building community. It's investing in our community. Mm-hmm. It's all these different things, youth engagement, all these different things.
It's investing in the ecosystem, actually.
All these things.
Did you know the monarch butterfly is close to being extinct?
Well, and one could fly over there if it was the right one.
It was, if they had the right if they have to have milkweed. That's what they go towards.
Well, the project, we're working.
Let me work on this.
We're working with Mr. Naki, and he has volunteered to teach about 6 different sessions of what the Bring Back the Bluegrass is, what the goal of it is, but then also how to take care of it. The first session we're going to do this fall, we're going to do a clean out, get all those weeds out, get all the bad plants that should not be there, which is a lot of them.
It's very therapeutic. I just want to say that, pulling weeds.
I hope to see you there. No. Anyways.
Really?
Either way. And then next spring, we'll do some information sessions. We'll do some plantings. We'll let the community to pick out what different flowers they want to see. We'll get it done. So it's a pilot project. We're going to do it in Marlboro. All neighborhoods are invited. And I think it's pretty cool. It's one of them boots on the ground.
So CBA, community benefits. The community benefits agreement framework could be a game changer for how development happens in Lexington. What exactly is a CBA and why does Lexington need one? How do you envision this policy ensuring that new development actually benefits neighborhoods they impact most?
Yeah, when big developers come to our cities and they are seeking huge, and they are not seeking, but they're getting huge ROIs, I believe, and well, just in general, even our comprehensive plan states that the community should benefit, whether that be through providing parks in that surrounding area, whether that be addressing the challenges of that area or the city. The goal is to allow our community to benefit, because it should, when you're
Mhm.
getting a huge ROI, giving a penny out of a dollar is not going to hurt.
Right.
That's how I look at it. Some may disagree, but I believe our community should benefit. So with that, we're working to build. We realize that the city does not have, or does not have binding framework
They don't
to
have the
allow.
framework
They don't
for
have the
it.
framework
Right.
to allow for a
Right.
CBA. So we're just creating that framework to say that you can do a legally we can do a legally binding CBA for different developments, whether that be solar. Originally it started from our solar Zoto conversation, and I wanted to do a CBA for our solar Zoto conversation. Couldn't do it because we didn't have the framework in place. So we addressed all our challenges head on. We took it on. And I ended up doing a community benefit plan. So just suggested that you could do this amount. You could benefit our community if we do large scale solar, and you're going to receive millions of dollars and use,
For providing energy. Yeah.
and the energy doesn't come back to our city. Well, why don't you invest in our Solarized Lex program? The same mission. This is where this all started from. So I had a plan to try to fund at that time, our Solarized Lex program was not funded. So I wanted to fund it through that investment thing. I thought it was a great idea. It still is. We got it passed in our ZOTA as the plan, not the agreement. But when we get this agreement framework done, we can come back in and say, hey, especially on our land or for certain areas tied to ZOTAs and things, we could say that you should take part in this community benefit agreement. That's what that is. So making sure it's all about investing in our community. That's what it is. We need investment.
Yeah.
We deserve investment.
So our next topic here, topic number 10 of 11. Yay.
Almost there. We got a lot of work we're doing. This is what it's about.
Domestic Violence Coalition. So as we stated at the beginning, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. If you see the purple that everybody's wearing or it's time pins, it is a movement in Lexington. And I love to see the attention given to it and the initiative and energy behind it. You've been working to strengthen collaboration among service providers. What inspired this initiative from your office? How will Green Dot training we are coordinating tie into broader city safety and awareness efforts? What kind of long-term impact do you hope this coalition creates for families and survivors across Lexington?
Right. Yeah, this item needed a sponsor in committee, and I 100% wanted to sponsor it because this directly goes into that theme of protecting our neighbors, whether it be women, men, families, across the board. Our neighbors deserve access to safe and healthy neighborhoods. They deserve access to safe and healthy homes. And in this case, this topic is a very sensitive topic, and I believe that everyone should have access to resources. Everyone should have access to information, that we should destigmatize different things that are correlated to it. But then also, we should make sure everyone is trained in different awareness factors. And that's exactly what our office is going to do, working with the social service office, working with the Green Dot program to make sure first all council members and staff are trained. And then I want to take it one step further and take it to all of my neighborhood associations and make sure our community leaders are trained. So just bringing awareness, making sure that we're destigmatizing the issues that are tied to it. And then also at the end of the goal, like I said earlier, that theme of protecting our neighborhoods. Safety is key. Everyone in the first district deserve access to a safe and healthy neighborhood, a safe and healthy home.
And I just want to shout out Lily Rochelle for creating the infomercial and all the videos behind it. And if you see a handsome little boy in the infomercial, it's my son. And he's got a line and everything. For his
Superstar,
time.
huh?
Yeah. Last one we have here is housing rehabilitation program reform. You have been working on this item. What kind of changes are being looked at and why were they needed? How do you make sure programs like this stay accessible and effective for residents who need them most?
Right. This program is important, and we have to make sure that it is working. It is impactful first, but then it's also working for the best benefit of the community, I would say. This just started because a constituent in my district was taking part in the program, and I was made aware of some internal issues. In that case, we addressed all of our challenges head on. And what we did is we worked through those internal issues. Now we are internally working to make sure that that all T's are crossed and all I's are dotted. Let's put it like that. And what that will look like is that's going to look like just some different updates over time where the administration comes and just presents on what has been changed, where the program is moved to, and the fixes. And we just want to make sure that all of our programs are as impactful as possible to our community and that there is no hitches involved, I would say. So and that's it. It's all like resources are important. That program is a beautiful resource and it can be very impactful, and I want that to be available and readily available for my constituents. So that's why I'm working on it. So, and I look forward to working with the administration on this item and on a lot of the other items as well.
So, when you look at this list of legislative wins and ongoing work, what's the common thread tying them all together?
3 themes: safety of our community, that we deserve, the first district deserves to have a thriving community, safe and healthy communities. The second one, investing in our youth, investing in people, specifically our youth. I say that our youth deserve to have a platform. I didn't have everything I wanted. I believe I had everything I needed, but at the least I had a platform to put my ladder on, and I am climbing that ladder of success. Unfortunately, in our city and across the nation, across the state, there's some youth without that platform, a bottomless platform. They stick their ladder on, it goes right through. They don't even have that opportunity to climb that ladder of success. So how can we as a city take that responsibility and at the least give them a platform? So youth is important to me, very important to me. The third one is, what's the third one, Adina? I forgot it. I just got off my tangent about youth getting emotional. What's my third one? We said safety, making sure our neighborhoods are safe and healthy, investing in our youth, and then the pressures of growth. I'm sorry. I'm back.
Yeah.
Pressures of growth.
You and these three
bullet
I love points.
Threes.
Yeah.
But the pressures of growth, really. Our communities are being pressured by growth. We're being pressured by gentrification. We're being pressured by just a lot of different things. And I believe that I know that these are historic communities. These communities, they're not put in the situation. We're not dealing with the challenge we're dealing in just for any old reason. We were redlined. I was talking to somebody yesterday. It's about pulling back the layers. And it's just about how comfortable you are about pulling those layers back. Some people get to that first layer, won't even pull it back. But when you start pulling back those layers, this is not a choice. We make choices that affect us, negative choices sometimes, but this is a circumstance that folk were put in. Redlining is real. Look at these neighborhoods. Look at the neighborhoods with the challenges.
We're still trying to fix.
So once you start pulling back those layers, do you take responsibility or do you not? Or do you just cover it back up? Is what I would say is the analogy. So within those 3 things, we're just pulling back layers. We're trying to address our challenges head on. And the 3 I would say would be, like I said, making sure we have safe and healthy neighborhoods. Public safety.
4.
Public safety. Safe and healthy neighborhoods. 2, youth programming, investing in people, investing in our youth. Not just youth, but investing in people. And then 3, the pressures of growth. But at the end of the day, we address all of our challenges head on. So,
how do these policies reflect your people, priorities, philosophy?
I think that it reflects them because we're listening and we're taking action, and we are pushing for investment into our people, invest in people, investing in our youth. We are pushing for safe and healthy neighborhoods. That's what we deserve. Life expectancy. We talked about redline just a minute ago. When the life expectancy in my neighborhoods is 10 to 15, 20 years less than the life expectancy 5 miles down the street, that's an issue. When youth are getting shot, killed in my district, to me, that's an issue. Folks getting hit by cars, that's an issue, right? So addressing these issues and actually doing something about it that I feel can be impactful, that's intentional. And what that takes is first listening to the community, to listening to the challenges. That takes going back to the drawing board, being intentional, thinking outside the box, sometimes being unconventional. And then it takes action. So, man, that's exactly what we're doing.
And finally, what is your real talk, real change message for listeners about why staying engaged in local policy really matters?
I say it all the time. I think it's my new saying every day. Our office wakes up every day. We take one bite out of the elephant. The first district has a big old elephant. That elephant's bigger than any district in the city. And we know that elephant's getting smaller each day. So staying involved, understanding that we're working, we're doing our best, we're trying our hardest, and that every day, no matter what, we're going to take a bite of that elephant, and we'll never stop biting until it gets till it gets in a place where we can handle it at least and eat it whole. So
Yeah,
that's what
and
I say.
I think just to add to that, if you don't stay engaged, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
And if you don't know what's going on, how can you make sure that your voice is heard and that what you want to see take place in your community does take place? And I think that to talk about your third bullet point of the pressures of growth, for me, growth is very important.
It is
Like that we
100%.
continue to grow.
100%.
It's like knowledge, right? You always want to be learning. You
Yeah.
always want to be growing, but you have to
Development
be.
growth. That's what I was talking
I
about.
know you're talking about development growth, but this does correlate because if you know what's taking place, which I think you have highlighted a lot of things to help inform the community of what's taking place,
Right.
information sharing, then they're prepared for those changes and they're prepared for that growth so that they can speak up and say, no, we don't want this, or yes, we do want this, or this is how we can see it working and pivot.
Right. Be a part of the conversation.
I think that
Yeah.
to be frank, the Black community, which is a lot of the community that's in your district, one of the things that we do well is pivot. So being able to have access to these resources and things allows us to pivot and be resilient and to continue to grow and hopefully thrive. It's hard. Like you said, it's bottomless. And sometimes it's like you're not going anywhere, but you can't stop trying and you can't give up.
Fair enough. You're right. You're right. I think that's a perfect way to end it.
And that's it for today's episode. If you learned something new or just love staying in the loop, make sure you follow Real Talk, Real Change on Instagram and Facebook. Actually, we're not on Instagram or Facebook. We're on Spotify. But you can follow Councilmember Morton on Instagram and Facebook. And we are on YouTube and Spotify for the podcast. And we post when it comes up. And also stay in tune with our weekly updates that we recently started releasing. They are weekly, even though they come out a little bit after the week has ended. We usually have long weekends, so there's things that go on the weekend, so we have to add to it. So yeah.
Stay tapped in, stay informed, and most of all, stay engaged. Change starts with conversations. This is Real Talk, Real Change. We'll catch you next time.